And in this economic recession, experts say a lot of businesses have to take a look at their reflection, turn around, and try something a little more creative. And while there has not been a cause for this fire, and they will not comment on it, officials say it will be demolished. Now, one of the ways you can assess the damage already done to your skin is through technologies like this. The Reveal Imager, as it's called, takes a picture of my face. The 3D viewer reveals the skin's topography, showing what's beneath the surface. Now, what this picture does is it shows where I've received the worst damage, particularly the forehead, my nose, right on top of the eyelids, as well as even the lip. And it pinpoints a lot of places that a lot of people don't realize have been hurt after years of exposure. A lot of times what criminals do is they come up from behind and try to snatch the cell phone. Under this change, if they do that, they will face up to 5 years in prison. Reporting in Hoboken, I'm Lisa Wojtycki for WNBC News. So he, like many of the subjects here, sat down with the artist one-on-one. And through these portraits, people can get an intimate look into their lives without having them go through the whole story. Now, aside from being swept, this is also one of the synagogues that was spray painted with anti-Semitic marks back during Hanukkah. Now, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office says that investigation is still ongoing. And what that means is that more suspects are out there. As a visitor coming up to the water, you might not think anything is wrong. But if you were told that typically around this time of year, the water is up to where this stone wall is, you would understand. Now, immediately following the terrorist attacks of 9/11, hundreds of people flocked to the store because that was the only way they knew how to show their support. And today, 11 years later, that still stands. Yes, this Luke oil station in South Plainfield is charging $8.99 for a regular gallon of gas. It's not so they can collect money from consumers. They say it's to draw attention to the fact that they're losing money. Bills that could affect the taxes on your home and your income are making their way through the legislature, and lawmakers only have 30 days to pass them before the summer break. The state's climatologist says this kind of thing only happens every 30 years, but as you're seeing, the rain now is going to change all of that. And not only was Newark represented during this season, but the winner is from New York, New York. But a renowned marine scientist from Rutgers University came here to La Valette today to say that this could all be dead very soon due to unchecked runoff. Now, both Democrats tend to agree on most items. In fact, they both agree that they're not going out of this race without a fight. But the question from the residents who are affected by this contamination is, will it mean progress? If you thought New York was the place to be, we have people from New York who came here to New Jersey starting at 8 this morning to get into MetLife Stadium where the Giants play. Every time firefighters at Squad 18 in Greenwich Village return home, they think of the ones who did not. On September 11th, 2001, 7 of their own died.
Especially around this time of year. You know, even the weather reminds you, clear day like this, it brings you right back 11 years ago.
And on tomorrow's 11th anniversary, hundreds of thousands who survived but are suffering from cancer are expected to learn they too could be eligible for help from the federal government.
If the science shows that that's the case, which it's starting to be pretty apparent that that's the case, there was a toxic stew down there.
Previously, health officials cited a lack of scientific evidence to support a link between cancer and the toxic dust unleashed by the collapse of the Twin Towers. That means those suffering cancer could not benefit from the federal government's $4.3 billion program created under the Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. But tomorrow, reports say the Institute for Occupational Safety and Health will announce the inclusion of 50 different types of cancer. Now, since 9/11, about 400 first responders and people who live near Ground Zero have died. And just last week, the FDNY added 9 firefighters' names to the memorial. Meanwhile, for those still on the job, the impacts of 9/11 never fade. because they never know if they too will become victims.
Yeah, we're all just walking time bombs. You know, every time I keep my fingers crossed every time I go for my medical.
The Zadroga Act currently covers 40,000 first responders' illnesses, but many victims say they have not received the funds yet. Critics also worry that expanded eligibility will mean less money distributed per person. So the hope is that Congress will increase the funding. Reporting in New York City, I'm Lisa Wojtycki for WNBC News.
I want it fixed so I can go home.
Helene Montague is one of at least 70 homeowners in the Lake Hiawatha section of Parsippany whose lives have been turned upside down since Hurricane Irene hit and the Rockaway River took over their homes. Nearly 1 year later, some are living in trailers, hotels, and apartments.
There's no bathrooms, there's no floors, there's no water, there's no walls in most places, there's no floors in most places, there's no kitchen.
For Helene, this was exacerbated. Her husband, who helped finish much of her home, was diagnosed with melanoma brain tumors the day after Irene and died shortly after. She's even had squatters.
So I haven't been able to address what needs to get done.
About 13% of funds from FEMA for New Jersey are going to Parsippany. That's about $7.2 million for 50 or so homes in the area to be razed or bought out. Today, federal officials, including Democratic Senator Robert Menendez, came to see where that money is going.
What do people like us do? We're stuck. We haven't been allowed in our house. We had 42 inches of water. Where do we turn?
The town's given the homeowners a choice. We're not telling them they have to leave. If they would like to elevate their homes, we want to do that, and we're going to help them to stay.
I've tried to do this on a number of occasions. I've hired architects, I've hired a contractor. I'm ready to go. And I'm being told over and over again, you can if you want help.
The problem now seems to be on a local level, where officials have to evaluate what kind of funding a home is eligible for.
But I'm tired and I want to go home.
Reporting in the Lake Hiawatha section of Parsippany, I'm Lisa Wojtycki for WNBC News. Meet the girls. Together, they lay 900 eggs a year and provide needed nutrients for Victor Alfieri's gardens. But what they are doing is illegal.
I can own up to 5 dogs and 6 cats in Wayne. But for some reason, towns treat chickens differently. And they're a pet. They're just like any other pet. But the great thing about chickens is they improve your life.
In Wayne, New Jersey, where Victor lives, by law, to have 3 chickens, he needs 2 acres of land. Victor only has a quarter of an acre, and since being denied a permit, he has been working with local officials to change the law and put in place licensing fees. Resistance, he says, has come from ignorance. Victor says 60 decibels, a normal human conversation, is about as loud as they get, and chicken manure is easily manageable. Now, these hens are not to be confused with roosters, male chickens who do crow and cackle.
Just with 3 hens, I save over $400 a year raising hens. The waste goes into my gardens. I should have a right to live a more natural lifestyle.
Now, Victor has worked with some of the council members to draft a new ordinance that would make this arrangement completely legal. They are expected to vote on it later in March. Reporting in Wayne, I'm Lisa Wojtycki for WNBC News.
We served and we should be able to come back and work. You know, there's a lot of people who run away from serving for their country.
Nicole Green is a U.S. Navy vet who's been out of work for 9 months. She wants to be a medical assistant, and she's finding her veteran status is not helping.
Even when you do go to an interview and you say that you're a veteran, you say that, you know, they're starting to do more things for vet, it's just not really catching on.
Now, many of these veterans get training doing EMT work while they serve. The difference is that when they come back here, a lot of these organizations require a slightly different certification, but overall, it's very similar. The New Jersey Assembly's Military and Veterans Affairs Committee just passed a bill that would require the state to certify EMTs and mobile intensive care paramedics with equivalent military training or experience in the armed forces if it exceeds or is equal to New Jersey's standards.
To me, that's one of the most important things that can happen. So many of our veterans come back already trained by the military. The military has trained them to be EMTs, to be truck drivers, to do so many of the work that we have here at home that needs a certification. 2
other bills passed would help military spouses who have to relocate to the state. Nurses could receive temporary licenses from the Board of Nursing, and for teachers, the Board of Education could issue temporary instructional certificates. Reporting in New Brunswick, I'm Lisa Wojtycki for WNBC News. We've all heard there's a drought, but nowhere is that more apparent than here on Greenwood Lake. You can see with this marker, the water is nowhere near to where it should be, and that could mean a big loss of revenue.